Today's lecture is entitled Science During the Renaissance Exploration Maps, the New View of the World and Some Revival of European Science and New Cosmology. So we dive into Renaissance. The term itself is used for the 100 years of European civilization from 1450 to 1550, okay, which is a time categorized by the appreciation of achievements by the Greco-Roman or classical period. And the Renaissance was prepared during 13th century of the age of scholastic science, where it highlighted a group or collection of bourgeoisie, merchants, bankers, and also enlightened individuals who happened to be ahead of their time to develop their full potential. So examples would be wealthy individuals, artists, poets, and so on. All right, and one of the first rational thinkers and great mathematicians here would be Gerbert, where you take a look more into what he has done. He had to give away science to become Pope Sylvester II. Okay, and the major impact that it had on others were that there were Latin translation of Greek and Roman works, which they had encountered in Arabic versions. And from the early Renaissance, we also had the increased patronage of the arts by wealthy individuals. And that was when the status of university with royal stature universities became more and more popular. So the coming of Renaissance, as I said, is a collection of literary, artistic, and intellectual development, began in Italy in the 14th century. And of course, they were inspired by a lot of works in ancient civilizations of Greece and Rome, and also rediscovered during the Crusades. So Florence would be really important if you look at Florence. So Florence is a place where it is a center of arts at the time. Okay, so we had Medici, which was leading banking house in the family that ruled Florence there. We had famous people such as Botticelli, Donatello, and Michelangelo, and of course, the most famous Leonardo da Vinci, where it's known to most people for his portrait of the Mona Lisa. So what is often less appreciated is that Vinci's influences on intellectual development of Europe during the Renaissance period. Okay, so he had far more contribution to that compared to his paintings and art. Okay, so Da Vinci was an incarnation of a humanist ideal where he is a very educated person, knowledgeable in all areas of human endeavor. He was a scientist, but unlike the others, for example, Alberti, he studied science only to extend it where it required to pursuit of his work. Okay, and when necessity arose, he also studied geometry, arithmetic, languages, mechanics, hydrodynamics, and animal movement. Right, so all these things, and also a bit of a human anatomy that he used in his scientific approaches. All right, so intellectual development, as I said here, humanism, they glorify human form and potential, and there has a revival sense of classic individualism as well. Okay, so individualism you can see in the art, in the work during the Renaissance period. This is something that you can look on further. All right. And the Renaissance movement, as I said, it originated in Italy during the spanning of a time frame 14th to 17th century, where it means the term itself, the rebirth in France, and also began in Florence, okay, and Tuscany and the Middle Ages. So what does the Renaissance have to do with scientific revolution at the time? It symbolizes the age of growth. Okay, so many cite in this area as the period during which modern science truly became into reality. For example, Galileo Galilei, which is known as the father of modern science. Also, three highly important scientists in the era of Renaissance would be Copernicus, of course, Galilei, and also Kepler. So Galileo, he built the foundation of Copernicus' work. He's also a firm believer of the heliocentric model. Okay, and he believed he was called a heretic for believing in that the sun, not the earth, was the motionless center of the universe. And of course, this comes with a lot of beliefs in religion as well, towards the church and what the church's function is during the time of the Renaissance movement. We had Nicholas Copernicus over here, Renaissance polymath, responsible for what we call you can see the distant motions of stars over here, the Copernican revolution. Okay, so one of the most important contribution of Copernicus was in the field of course, you can see here, astronomy. Okay, so he placed the sun at the center of the universe rather than the earth, and the previous system, which was the Ptolemaic system, where the earth actually was the center of the universe. So this is basically a contradiction. All right, and in 1543, in his on the revolutions of the celestial spheres, which he published his theory. All right, so this you can look more into the work of Copernicus as well. And moving on to science during Renaissance. So the fact has caused some debate. So in a time where many have actually asked, Huff in 1993 put forth the question, why did China not conquer the world? So why doesn't the civilization of China conquer the world at that time? Why did Spain and Portugal destroy civilizations of America and later Britain and France? The civilizations of Africa, why is it they were under colonial rule? So based on science and technology alone, China was in a much better position to do so. Okay, so if you look back into the China civilizations, it had the compass, which allowed Chinese mariners to cross oceans, to lands and sites they haven't seen before. It had gunpowder, cannons, rifles, all the hand grenades that will allow it to take over civilizations. And it is also superior to the Spanish and Portuguese civilization. So once again, we ask ourselves the question, why then did China not colonize the world? Okay, so maybe this would be a good question as well for you to consider in your essay. So we look into a bit of the Chinese science and the exploration of the world. So we have Chinese fire arrows here, which early on they have a lot of development in the weaponized gunpowder. They use it as primitive rockets at that time. And to determine even Chinese scientists, where they use daylight hours and water and clocks at night. Okay, if you read furthermore, you can see that they have accurate timings of local timings and the different type of water clocks they even use to explore the world. This is during Chinese science. All right, so a bit more into Renaissance again. Kepler here, he's responsible for creating planetary motion, and it includes the orbit of every planet is an eclipse of the sun. Okay, so Kepler was also well known, incorporated the field of physics and the field of astronomy. And of course, this caused a lot of controversy, but his ideas became more widely read and accepted only after his death. And also Newton derived Kepler's laws from a theory of universal gravitation. Okay, this is the basis of the foundation of scientific revolution. Okay, so the origin, cycle, matter, and endpoints over here, we can see, of course, the Big Bang Theory, the galaxy, how the stars were formed, and this is the pre-Columbian civilizations of Europe in 16th century. Okay, so we can see a lot of contradictions. The theories change and evolve as time passed. So from 1650 to 1800s, we have European philosophers begin to rethink old ideas. So ideas that they had about the government, religion, economics, all this were known as Enlightenment, or in other terms, Enlightenment is also known as a call of age of reason. Okay, so this is a bit of the time frame of scientific revolution. As I said just now, I highlighted a few on scientific methods and mathematics. Scientists discovered here. So the way of thinking, how the world developed, and the ability to ask questions during the scientific revolution, moving into the Enlightenment period, where writers challenged many concepts about government and society. Right? So people try to discuss about political science, about new ideas about government. Philosophers try to use reason to discover truth and social issues. Then we move on to spread of ideas. Enlightenment ideas will move across Europe, as well as ideas begin to enter into the middle class. So at this period, the spread of ideas, Enlightenment ideas begin to sweep the European society and also to colonize America. And last but not least, we have the American Revolution over here. The colonists declare independence, so defeat Britain, where the Enlightenment ideas influence colonies and the British taxes. You see how colonization takes a part over here. So we have the four main movements, Enlightenment and Revolution from 1550 to 1789. All right, so moving on to the Enlightenment and music. So during this time, intellectuals, they looked more or even tried to explore music. Okay, of course, we have the aristocratic society, the bourgeois society, how they came together, and how can you reach a so-called of understanding a new economic order. Okay, so it has a lot to do with religion, with politics and government, and also feudalism and capitalism. Of course, you can take a look at a few of the musicians during the time, during the Enlightenment period of the 18th century. Right, so if we discuss Enlightenment, of course, we bring in the Reformation. So we have, we did a bit on Islam, on the Islamic religion. So moving a little bit more into Christianity, where of course they have this notion where the idea that the value of one's life and actions can be judged through the dialogue through God. So this is a process of Reformation, where what happened was they actually sold purchases. Priests at the time, they purchase of indulgence. It's basically a person who was freed from committed sin. So indulgences which were sold during the papal accredited papal agents. Okay, so you can look into what indulgence is as well. This is very, very essential during the Reformation. Okay, so what is Reformation? You want to know even more. What was the Reformation? So it was a split between in the Christian church. So it happened because people weren't happy about the church, they protested. And of course, there's a division between the Catholic Church and Protestants. That's why we call them Protestants. They started a new religion. It is called the Reformation. Okay, so they discard themselves or separate themselves from the main church, which is in Rome, Vatican City. All right. So causes of Reformation, maybe you can look into even more. Why did the Roman Catholic Church, what conflict did they had, the religions between the Northern and Western Europe, the churches during the Middle Ages, and some rulers began to challenge the church's political power. So socially, economically, politically, and religious, okay? These are a few reasons of why it caused the Reformation, okay? So in terms of economy, in terms of religious beliefs, they don't actually follow because new ideas were seeping through. And political times, many leaders want to be, they viewed the Pope as, not only just a foreign ruler, they wanted to change the system. All right, so these are a few causes of the Reformation. And of course, an influential figure will be Martin Luther. So what he has done here, he led during the Reformation, where he discusses a lot about Lutheran Church. It's the start of the Lutheran Church, the first step for Christianity to adapt into the new capitalistic ethics. And of course, we have John Calvin. So look more into what the roles of Martin Luther and also John Calvin. Okay, so this is just a quote. He says here, faith is a work of God in which changes us and brings us birth anew from God. So there is a bit of a controversial between even the Catholic Church and the Protestants. All right. And we also have the Greek and Roman classics over here, Paracelsus over here. He looking into the medicine, the field of medicine and chemical remedies, where you can prepare different types of chemicals. This is something that I'll leave up to you during that time to explore. All right, and the art of medicine has its roots in the heart. So this is something that I would like you to look into as the saying during that time. How far is this saying true? The art of medicine has its roots in the heart. And Voltaire has actually said, the art of medicine consists of amusing the patient while nature cures the disease. Okay, so a bit into the body of scientific revolution over here. Of course, we have textbooks on the workings of the human body. Andreas Vesalius, so he's a Dutch-born physician, taught at the medicine at University at Papadua, and a few books that he has published as well. You can take a look at the body of his scientific revolution over here. Maybe a little bit about the Ottoman Empire during that time as well. So I think early on we have actually covered during the Ottoman Empire what happened, the different types of scholars, Mehmed's son, Bayezid II, who began the expansion of the country to the Great Ottoman Empire. Okay, so the great progress that was experienced by the Ottoman Empire and how it did not reach the area of science. Okay, and then of course from the Ottoman Empire we have the Mughal Empire. So we have Akbar the Great. We have here stories about Jahangir and how the situation of probably the empire, the Mughal Empire, did not develop forwards towards capitalism. Okay, but rather into a more autocratic feudalism style of life. All right, so this lecture is actually very short. Of course, there's more reading to be done, but maybe we can recap. We have actually discussed China a little bit on why it did not rule the world. That is something you can ask yourself a question. Florence as the center of the time when we were discussing Renaissance, right, during the Greco-Roman science. A bit on colonialism, which is very important now. It would like to highlight the Reformation and also this, the Enlightenment and Revolution. So the shift from scientific revolution, Enlightenment, spread of ideas, and finally to the American Revolution.